Welcome to the show. We've got a great show today. It's time for another Anvil Top review. It's been a while since I reviewed any products. I've really been a lot more focused on blacksmithing and knife making and other projects. But this is a review I've wanted to do for a long time. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I decided to move from the city we were living in out to the country. And when we made that move, we knew we wanted to have animals. We didn't get a lot. We just have some chickens and a couple of goats, but they needed a place to live, and so I knew I was going to have to build something for them. We didn't want to spend a ton of money, and so we found a supplier for some cheap pallets and spent a little bit of money on plywood and siding. And I got to work building an enclosure that would essentially be a barn and a chicken coop kind of in one. And at that time, I knew I was going to need some decent tools to do the work. We didn't have electricity easily available to us that far from the house, so I decided it was time to get some cordless tools. Oh, before I get any further into this, let me tell you exactly what I'm reviewing. The set that I bought 2 years ago came with a reciprocating saw, similar to a Sawzall, a circular saw, probably very similar to a skill saw, a cordless drill with a 1/2-inch chuck, a flashlight, 2 batteries, a charger, and a bag for everything to go in. I think I included everything there. If I didn't, we'll probably find out here in a minute as I'm doing the review. I've worked a little bit with Machete and DeWalt and maybe a couple of other brands over the years, but I won't be able to speak really authoritatively on those because I just don't have enough experience with them. But I can tell you now that the set of tools that I bought only cost me about $185. I've seen them on sale as cheap as $150. And as far as I'm concerned, it was some of the best money I have spent in my life. Not only did this particular set of tools make the chicken coop easier, but when I realized how easy it was to do this work, and how well these tools functioned, how long the batteries lasted, how much power they had, it just totally opened the way for me to do a whole bunch of other projects that I had kind of had in my mind and I had been thinking about. And in fact, this workshop that I'm standing in right now as I do this review is one of those projects that this set of tools enabled me to do. I should point out right now, before I go any further, I am not getting paid to do this review. I don't work for Sears or the Craftsman Tool Company. This is just me, one person's experience. I'm also not a professional builder, so this is not necessarily going to be a review for a professional who's looking for tools that are going to last for years and years on the job site. I can't really speak to that, because as much as I've used these tools, it's still pretty light duty compared to actual regular construction work. But with that said, I have personally had a tremendous experience with these, and I would recommend the Craftsman Cordless, at least the 19.2 volt that you're seeing here. These tools have been rugged and durable, and I really honestly have not gone out of my way to maintain them. I usually just use them, pull the batteries out, charge them up. A lot of times they'll be sitting around, they'll be sitting in a spot where they're getting covered with dust from some project I'm working on. I do a lot of woodwork, a lot of metal work, and so far these tools have stood up very, very well to every bit of abuse that I've thrown at them. Now, I'm not going to try to claim that these tools will last forever on a charge. Certainly the drill, and I think the reciprocating saw too, will work for a long, long time. With both of those tools, I've never really encountered any problem with the longevity of a fully charged battery. But again, these are not tools that I'm regularly using all day long. Most of the projects I've done have probably only required, 20 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes of use. And some of the projects really have taken a lot less than that. But a lot of times I'll throw a battery in this drill and I'll be using it on something, one day, and I'll use it on something the next day, and maybe it'll sit for a couple of days, and a week later I'll have a big project and I'll use it for 20 minutes or something doing something, and then a week after that I use it for another little project, and then finally the battery dies and I have to throw a new one in there. So a fully charged battery will provide plenty of power for any kind of ordinary task, and really even light construction tasks. I've done framing with it, I've done flooring, I've put up exterior siding, roofing, pretty much any construction task that you might do with a drill I've used this for, and it's had plenty of power to handle those tasks. And certainly the reciprocating saw as well. It'll cut through 2x4s, 2x6s, plywood, really anything I've tried to cut with it, it'll cut through. I've used the all-purpose blade on it to dismantle pallets, and to do that, sometimes I'm cutting through nails with it, and as long as I have a good blade in there, it has no problem going through nails. The only complaint I might have in terms of performance comes from using the circular saw. I would say cutting power is not the issue, but let's say you've got maybe some plywood pieces and you need to trim those to size to do some exterior siding type of work. Go ahead and do it, but just have an extra charged battery on hand. Because although the saw itself has plenty of power to cut, there's only so much juice in those batteries. So if you're really going to do a lot of cutting, make sure you've got a good fully charged battery and be ready with a second one. Beyond that, I really have no complaints. I will say though that the original drill that came with the set did eventually quit working, but that was after several weeks of being used for much heavier type construction work that my dad was doing. Pretty major remodeling project. And even though the drill eventually quit on him, he was so pleased with the performance of it and the durability of it that he went out and bought 2 more drills, one to replace the one that he had borrowed from me and another one for himself. So that should give you a sense too that this is a really good tool, especially for the price, and a tool that you can expect to stand up to maybe much tougher jobs than you think it might. When it comes to charging the batteries, the charger that came with this kit can either stand alone on a counter, or like you see here, it can be fastened to a wall or to a stud. It doesn't take up a lot of space. You can see that it's really not in the way here. It's easy to slip a battery in. You know, there's very clear and visible lights on there. It's pretty simple, straightforward. It's got a flashing green light to tell you it's charging and a solid green to tell you it's done. This isn't like a super speedy charger, but from my experience, if I throw a battery on there for 20 minutes, half an hour, it's ready to go for a lot more work. And most of the time, I just wind up locking the battery in there and forgetting about it because I'm usually done with whatever project I'm working on before I need another battery anyway. And then this is the charger that came with the drill that my dad bought to replace the one that he used up. So that was kind of cool. I got an extra battery and an extra charger out of the deal because the battery on the other drill was fine. And this charger, of course, is smaller than the other one, but in its own way, it's just as easy to use, and I've never had any trouble with it failing to charge batteries or being underpowered or anything like that. Just a couple other things to mention here. For any of you that have used reciprocating saws, circular saws, or really any kind of modern power tools, all the controls will be familiar to you. The functionality should be familiar. Changing from one bit to another is really simple. You don't need to monkey around with a chuck wrench or whatever. You just give it a good twist by hand and it loosens up pretty good. It has a little bit of a torquing feature up here. So if you get like a drill bit or something stuck in there, you can use the power on the drill to give you a little extra help. The circular saw is very much adjustable for depth, for angle. I haven't used the angle feature very much. I've really only done a couple of projects where I needed it, but that's pretty straightforward. I mean, you just set the angle how you want it and cut away. As you can see, you can cut very shallow if you want to, which we've done on some projects, and you can also get real deep and cut through dimension lumber with no problem. And anybody that's ever changed the blades on a Sawzall or any kind of reciprocating saw, you know the mechanism for changing blades is pretty simple. It's no different with these. And as far as I know, this is a standard size of blade. I mean, I've bought many different brands of blade, and they've all fit perfectly fine. So I imagine there's an industry standard there, and that's probably just what they use. So there it is. If you're thinking about getting a set like this, or if you're thinking about picking up 1 or 2 of these tools, I would definitely say run to a Sears store and take a look at their, they have a few different packages. The one that I bought, I think I mentioned, was I want to say it was 180, 189, 185, something like that. But I've seen them online. I actually saw one recently. They were on sale for 145 plus tax. And, you know, that's a little bit of money, but for what you're getting here, I think you could definitely pay a lot more. And I will also mention that if you buy these tools individually, you will pay a lot more for them, at least the ones that I've seen. But definitely look into those package deals. And again, check online and see if you can find a better price than what you might find in the store. Although they're usually pretty reasonably priced in the store too. And finally, before we go, I should mention the flashlight. I don't really consider this to be a huge asset. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of cool that the flashlight runs on the same battery as the rest of the kit. And I have used it, but I honestly haven't used it much. This one has one of those little kind of old-fashioned style incandescent bulbs. I think you could get a lot more bang out of it if it had maybe a modern LED in there. But then again, I bought this a couple years ago. They may have gone over to a new design anyway. To me, the flashlight wasn't a big point of sale anyway. I've got flashlights of my own, but I kind of looked at it as a cool little free bonus. So there it is. You have my unsolicited and unpaid review of the 19.2 volt Craftsman Cordless Tools. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you got something out of this. And if you like this video, I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel. I'm usually posting about 3 times a week. I'm probably mainly focused on knife making, blacksmithing, and metalworking DIY projects, but we do a few different things, and from time to time I'll do a review like this one. So if you like what you see, sub to my channel, and I'll just say have a great day, and see you in the next video.